I'm a 20-year-old woman. My life changed a lot after my parents decided to live apart and my mom left our family. This made my relationship with my dad, who is 50 years old, become very difficult. When I was just 8 years old and suddenly without my dad started drinking a lot, almost all the time. He didn't take care of me like a parent should. I had to learn how to take care of myself. Because we lived in a very small and not nice home called an Airstream, and my dad didn't try to improve our situation, it was hard for me to make friends. As I grew up and became a teenager, I started taking care of the household. I did all the cleaning and other tasks around the house. I also helped my dad find a group called Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, through a friend from school. This group helped my dad stop drinking so much and start working to support us financially. But even though he started earning money for us, I still only see him as someone who provides money, not as a father in a traditional sense. We both tried to get closer to each other, but it never really worked. My dad has never said he's sorry for how he acted when I was younger, and we don't talk about those difficult times. Luckily, my grandparents have always supported me. When they found out how tough things were for me and my dad, they moved closer to help me. They know everything that happened and have told my dad he should have acted differently, but he hasn't changed. My grandparents have been great though. They've been there for me in a way my dad hasn't, and we have a strong relationship. 2 years ago, my dad started seeing a woman from his work, Angela, who is 52 years old, and she has a son named Josh, who is also 20. My dad and Angela got married, making Josh my stepbrother. Right from the start, Josh and Angela didn't really like me because I'm not very close to my dad. They didn't understand what had happened in the past, so it made things awkward and difficult between us. I was really relieved when I went to college because it meant I didn't have to spend much time with my stepmom and stepbrother. College was great for me. I made a lot of friends, got involved in different activities, and started working part-time jobs to earn my own money. I've always tried to do things on my own and be as independent as I can. Even so, my dad was still paying for my college, which was something I couldn't afford on my own, despite trying to make extra money through small side jobs. My grandparents were the people in my family I talked to the most. I would visit them a lot more often than I would see my dad. Whenever I had a break from school, I liked to spend time with my grandpa or just visit my dad for the weekend. Josh, my stepbrother, was also away at college, so I didn't see him much at home. However, Angela, my stepmom, was always at my dad's house, making my visits feel uncomfortable and awkward. She always tried to get me to understand my dad's perspective and wanted us to be a perfect, problem-free family. The last time I was there, the atmosphere in the house felt tense. Josh was there too, with a girl I had never seen before, and he seemed very uneasy. Angela had many private talks with him and this girl, who was Josh's girlfriend. Whenever I was at the house, it felt like they were all about to start arguing. I wasn't interested in their issues, but then my dad brought up something that caught my attention. He asked me about my college and my future plans. I was surprised he showed interest in talking to me. Then he explained why he was asking. He suggested that college might not be the best path for me at the moment, mentioning a job opportunity at his workplace. He thought getting some real-life experience before continuing my education might be good for me. He asked if I could pause my college studies, and I said yes, but I didn't really want to. He then revealed that our family was having financial problems, and my college fees were a big burden. He suggested I drop out and work to help with the finances. This news was a shock to me. I had no idea our finances were in such bad shape. I didn't want to leave college, but I also felt it was unfair for my dad to pay for my education if money was tight. I was ready to send an email to my college dean to explain my situation and take a break from school. However, I'm glad I didn't send that email because by chance I found out that our family's financial situation was actually fine. My dad had a plan that involved using the money meant for my college fees to make a down payment on a house for Josh, my stepbrother. One day, I saw Josh looking at houses on a website called Zillow. When I asked him what he was doing, he told me something surprising. He said that he and his girlfriend were expecting a baby, and his mom thought it would be best for them to live in a house so they could raise their family properly. Josh explained that everyone in the family was going to help pay for the house, and he planned to pay them back later. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, so I immediately went to ask my dad if this was the reason he wanted me to drop out of college. After avoiding the question for a bit, my dad finally admitted it was true. He said he didn't tell me because he knew I didn't see Josh as my brother and would refuse the idea. I felt deeply hurt that my dad and Angela would sacrifice my education and push me to work just to support Josh's situation. I called my grandparents and asked if I could stay with them for the rest of my break from school. They were very upset when they heard about what my dad had done. My grandpa decided to take action. He took me to see his lawyer, where he made a change to his will. This change meant that my dad would no longer receive anything from my grandparents, and instead, everything would go directly to me. My grandparents had saved a good amount of money over the years. I know it might seem petty, but I asked my grandpa if I could have a copy of the will to show to my dad. My grandpa was also tired of my dad's behavior and agreed. A few weeks later, I went to my dad's house and told him about the changes to the will. I also mentioned that my grandparents were going to support me through college, making it clear I didn't need anything from my dad. He was shocked by this news and called his parents to confirm. After they did, he was very upset and said he didn't want to see me anymore. Now, I'm questioning if I went too far by showing him the will and cutting off ties with him. After cooling down, I talked to some college friends about it, and even my grandparents feel a bit regretful. The situation didn't bring the closure I was hoping for. My dad hasn't reached out to me or his parents since, and I'm unsure if that's good or bad. The whole situation, including our past issues and the recent problems with Josh, makes me feel like maintaining a relationship with my dad might be too difficult and unhealthy. I keep thinking about the moment I told my dad I didn't need him anymore, and the expression on his face. It makes me wonder if I'm being too forgiving, or if I'm just not standing up for myself enough. It's confusing, and it seems like I'll have to accept the decisions I've made. Let me tell you what happened next, because things changed quite quickly. Firstly, my dad showed up at my grandparents' house wanting to talk to me alone. He apologized for not being there for me during my childhood and for misleading me about our financial situation. He offered to start paying for my college again, if I was okay with that. His sudden change of heart took me by surprise, and honestly, I wasn't ready to let him pay for my education just yet. Then, in front of his parents, my dad announced he was divorcing Angela. We were all taken aback and asked him why. He explained that Angela had pressured him into buying a house for Josh and had forced him to choose between her and me. He admitted to trying to keep both of us happy by lying about the money issues. My dad said he realized how important I am to him, especially after I showed him I could live without his support. It seemed like he had a moment of clarity, but I was still hesitant to trust him completely. My grandparents were hopeful to see my dad wanting to make amends, and they welcomed him back. My dad seemed to understand that rebuilding our relationship would take time and effort, and he didn't expect immediate forgiveness. To everyone who's been messaging me, yes, I managed to return to college without any trouble. My grandparents have been incredibly supportive, and my dad is currently dealing with his divorce from Angela. I've been talking to him and spending a bit of time together, and things between us are gradually getting better. It looks like he genuinely wants to change, and I'm open to the possibility of building a relationship with him. It won't be simple, and we both need to make an effort to grow together. For the first time, it feels like repairing our relationship might be achievable. As for my earlier actions, I realized that showing the will to my dad might not have been the best move, but I'm learning to approach the situation with more understanding. I'm cautious, especially given how quickly he sided with Angela over me. But now that he's shown regret, I'm willing to see where this path leads us. There's still a lot of groundwork that needs to be done before he can become trustworthy. And to your dad was willing to screw you over to keep his wife and stepson happy. The only thing that concerns me is that he had his epiphany after knowing he wasn't receiving any inheritance. IMO, you shouldn't have mentioned that at all and seen how he reacted. Next story. Let me share a story about something that happened at my school. I'm a 16-year-old girl. Our school decided to organize a bake sale to raise money for the sports teams, but nobody really thought we would make any money from it. Just the day before the bake sale, our vice principal announced that each team would be responsible for making a specific dessert. Unfortunately, my team got the less popular option. We were assigned to make raisin cookies, while the football team got to make chocolate chip cookies, which are usually more liked. My friend Lisa, who is 17 years old, and her mom spent the whole evening baking these raisin cookies from scratch. They worked really hard and made a total of 52 cookies. However, because not many people like raisin cookies, we didn't sell any. This was disappointing because the money raised from the bake sale was supposed to be shared equally among all the sports teams, even though most of it usually ends up going to the football team anyway. The plan was that half of whatever money we made from the bake sale would go to our sports teams, and the other half would go to a local charity. This bake sale was especially important for us because it was supposed to help fund an upcoming trip for our team. Initially, we had different plans for what to bake, but the vice principal changed them, leading to us not making any money. Predicting this might happen, I decided to take action. After school, I took all the cookies Lisa had made and started selling them in my neighborhood for $1 each. Amazingly, I managed to sell them to 30 people, and my dad even gave me $12 for the remaining cookies. It took me about 4 hours to sell them all. The following day, I shared the money I made with Lisa and contributed the rest to our team's funds during lunch. We started discussing how Lisa could bake all the desserts for us to sell in our neighborhoods in the future. This could potentially cover the entire cost of our trip, and we wouldn't have to rely on the school's fundraising methods. However, a member of the football team overheard our conversation and told the vice principal about our plan. The vice principal called us into her office and demanded that we give 50% of the money we raised to charity, as per the original agreement, or else our team would be banned from playing in the next game. I refused, pointing out that her last-minute changes to the bake sale were the reason we didn't make any money in the first place. She threatened to call the police and our parents, accusing us of theft. Despite her threats, I stood my ground. However, we were forced to stay at school until our parents arrived, and the school officer was present the whole time to intimidate us. In the end, we had to give all the money we raised, not just 50%, and our team was suspended from playing until further notice. Additionally, I was given detention on Fridays for a week. That evening, my mom was very upset with me. She told me I was acting entitled and disrespectful, and that I needed to mature. I didn't respond to her. I usually don't when she's upset like this. Later, I sent a message to Lisa saying sorry for what happened. Lisa told me that my actions were a bit rude, which made me think about this situation more deeply. I want to thank everyone for their advice. After having a conversation with my dad and Lisa, I understood that getting angry at the vice principal wasn't going to fix anything. In fact, it was just making the situation worse. I recognize now that I could have handled things in a much better way, and I admit that was my mistake. I've decided that on Monday I'm going to apologize and move on from this. Some people suggested going to the local news or taking bigger actions, but this really isn't such a big issue. I'm encouraging Lisa to talk to the school board about the vice principal's decision to take our money, but I'm going to stay out of it beyond that. I want to clarify something because it seems there's a misunderstanding. Some people think I just took the cookies without asking Lisa, which isn't true. I did ask her, and she was okay with me selling them. I'm not sure why Lisa was upset afterwards. I'm wondering if any other teammates were upset too. This whole situation reminds me why I usually stay away from school fundraisers. It often feels like the money raised doesn't fairly support all groups, like the arts or choir, and is instead focused on sports like football. If we were told to take the cookies home because they didn't sell at the bake sale, then it seems reasonable to use them as we see fit to support our team. I don't see a problem with that approach. Moving on to a different story, I'm 18 and have been working at a plant nursery for about 3 years. I really love my job there. Even though I earn minimum wage, the store is usually quiet. My manager is very understanding, and I get along great with my coworkers. Up until recently, I hadn't had any issues with anyone at work. Alex, a 30-year-old coworker of mine, and I work closely in the same part of the nursery. We started chatting and joking around a lot since he was hired last summer. We share some common interests and got along really well. Alex has a disability, although I'm not sure of the specifics. It seems to affect his cognitive abilities. He has an attendant who is available to help him from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. during the weekdays. Once I began attending school and could only work on Sundays, Alex and I didn't see each other much. But on my first day back working full-time after graduating, Alex was really happy to see me and gave me a hug. I'm not comfortable with physical contact for personal reasons, so that moment was a bit uncomfortable for me, but I didn't say anything about it. The first time Alex hugged me, it caught me off guard because he had never done that before. We had a brief chat after that and then went our separate ways. Later on the same day, we bumped into each other again, and Alex hugged me for a second time. This time, I gently pulled away and suggested we could do a high five instead, noting that I've seen him high five other coworkers in the past. Alex seemed a bit sad but agreed, and we ended up doing a high five, which felt like a good compromise to me. However, about an hour later, Alex hugged me again. When I expressed that I'd prefer not to hug, he dismissively said, "I don't care," and then unexpectedly kissed me several times on the cheek. I managed to step away from him and ended up having a panic attack in the bathroom before deciding to leave work early that day. I'm someone who really values personal space and does not enjoy being touched. Despite trying to establish a new greeting with high fives the next day, Alex didn't seem interested and continued to hug me, ignoring my attempts to set boundaries. I even talked to his attendant, who had witnessed these interactions, hoping she might help explain to Alex why this behavior was making me uncomfortable. Unfortunately, she didn't take my concerns seriously, mentioning that Alex hugs her often and seemed indifferent to how the situation was affecting me. This whole ordeal began to weigh heavily on my mental well-being, making me anxious about the thought of going to work and encountering the same behavior again. Finally, I decided to talk to my manager about what had been happening. My manager was very understanding and made it clear that Alex's actions were not appropriate. He spoke to both Alex and his attendant, giving them a warning about respecting coworkers' personal boundaries. After this, the attendant pulled me aside and criticized me for making a complaint. She defended Alex by saying he was just showing affection in his own way and that I shouldn't have taken it so seriously. I explained that despite Alex's intentions, he had overstepped my personal boundaries, making me feel very uncomfortable. The attendant accused me of being mean and unfair just because I didn't want to be hugged, and then she left the conversation abruptly. Later, I wanted to say thanks to everyone who took the time to share their thoughts, give advice, and offer support. This morning, I talked to my manager about the comments Alex's attendant made to me after they had a meeting. My manager mentioned he would look into the situation with the agency that employs the attendant. For now, I've been assigned to work at the cash register inside to avoid any uncomfortable situations. I thought it was better not to ask for Alex to be moved, so when I saw him today, I just waved and said hello from a distance, and he waved back. It seems like Alex's attendant is choosing to ignore me now. Some advice I received was to go back to my manager and tell him what the attendant said. The attendant's role is to assist Alex in navigating adult life, which includes understanding and respecting basic rules at work, such as not touching coworkers, especially when they have expressed discomfort with it. If Alex is unable to follow this rule, his disability does not exempt him from the consequences, which could include losing his job. Moreover, the attendant's failure to support workplace norms and protect both Alex's and coworkers' rights might mean she is not fulfilling her responsibilities properly, suggesting she might also need to be reevaluated or let go. Alex clearly understood I did not want to be hugged because he acknowledged my refusal before choosing to hug me anyway, showing a clear disregard for my boundaries.